The brain is divided into two halves, left and right, separated by a deep crease down the middle. The left and right cerebral hemispheres are not symmetrical. However, each hemisphere has the same four lobes, four major partitions that we will learn in this video today. This here is a left cerebral hemisphere. This part is the brainstem. This here is the cerebellum. And the big, more familiar part is the cerebrum. Cerebrum means brain in Latin, and cerebellum means little brain. Those four lobes that we will talk about today are parts of the cerebrum. We divide the brain into parts because every bit of the brain is responsible for a unique, specific function. For example, this is the Broca's area. It is a part of the frontal lobe in the left hemisphere and it is responsible for speech generation and language production. And there is another area here called Wernicke's area, which is for speech understanding, for comprehension of language. So imagine there is a patient with a head injury and he can understand us clearly but has trouble with speaking and forming sentences. We may conclude that there might be a problem in his Broca's area and we can focus our research on that part rather than focusing Wernicke's area. We divide and label the brain because it has been built this way and so we can analyze it better this way. So, this is the occipital lobe and is at the back of the brain. The temporal lobe is below the temples, in front of the ears. The parietal lobe is in the upper rear portion of the brain, above the occipital lobe, and the frontal lobe is in the front, behind the forehead. First of all, we need to know what is a sulcus and a gyrus. The sulcus is a groove, and the gyrus is a bump. The plural form of the sulcus is sulci, and the plural form of gyrus is gyri. Central sulcus is this one, and it is the border between frontal and parietal lobes. There are two incredibly special gyri around here. We will get to this one later. The occipital lobes, located at the back of the head, are concerned entirely with different aspects of vision. They are involved with visual information processing. Most of the signals from the eyes arrive at these babies. The occipital lobes contain many separate areas that work together to characterize the properties of viewed objects, such as their shape, color, and motion. Damage to these lobes results in partial or complete blindness. The temporal lobes are in front of the ears, and they play a key role in processing sound, straightforward, but also they are involved in entering new information into memory and storing visual memories and comprehending language. Basically, the temporal lobes are important in hearing, in memory, and language. Auditory information and sounds come to the temporal lobe and are processed here. And in this area, in the superior temporal gyrus is involved in the comprehension of language. This is Wernicke's area. Parietal lobes are at the top and rear of the brain here, and among their functions are sensation, attention, arithmetic, and registering spatial location. When you recall where you left your keys, how to get a friend's house, or try to understand the objects by touching them in the dark, your parietal lobes are at work. And these are the parts that we call the famous frontal lobes. The frontal lobes are the part that makes us uniquely human. Probably the most dramatic difference between the appearance of a human brain and a monkey brain is how much the human brain bulges out in front. The frontal lobes, located behind the forehead, are critically involved in planning, the search for specific memories, motor control through the motor cortex, speech control through Broca's area, reasoning, and emotions. Frontal lobes have either motor function or executive functions such as judgment and planning. Phineas Gage, a railroad worker from the late 19th century, is the most famous case of a patient with damage to his brain. He lost a big part of his frontal lobe after an accident, but miraculously, Gage lived. But he was a changed man. After the accident, he led a disorderly life where he couldn't stick to any decision. He had little self-control and had trouble controlling his emotions. Gage's accident led to the revolutionary finding in neurology that every part of the brain is responsible for a different task. Now, for the last part, we will look at those two special gyri. As I told before, the central sulcus is the border between frontal and parietal lobes. Just behind the central sulcus, there is a specialized strip that we call somatosensory cortex, or sensory cortex for short. This gyrus registers the sensations on the body, like rubs, scrapes, tickles, and so forth. Whatever your sense organs senses comes here. Sensations from each part of the body are registered in a specific section of the strip of the cortex. So all sensation from the body is detected in this part of the brain. In front of the central sulcus, there lies the motor cortex. The motor strip controls fine movements, and just like the somatosensory cortex, is organized in terms of body. This gyrus controls the body. In theory, you can move a human's body by electrifying these parts. So, in short, motor cortex controls your body. Sensory cortex allows you to sense. Let me finish this with a story. You walk into kitchen and see your grandma cooking. You see her and you see a bowl which she whisks something in it rapidly. Then you look at the oven and see some cookies. Some of them are triangle and white. Some of them are circle and brown. In this scene, you have used your occipital lobes. You saw everything. Kitchen, movement of the whisker, shapes and colors of cookies with your occipital lobes. Then your grandma yells at you. She has hearing problems, so she always yells when she wants to talk. Because she literally screams, you hear her well. She wants to teach you how to bake cookies. You learn the cookie recipe from her. She shows you how she has been doing it. Your temporal lobes were working here. You hear her sound. You comprehend her language. New information comes into your memory. You store some new visual memories. Remember, your vernix area made you able to understand her language. Now it is your turn to bake. You pick up flour and egg and touch them with your hands and smell the chocolate, even bite a piece of it. You walk inside the kitchen, looking, and you gather some tools. Then you focus, give your attention, because there is a ratio between the amount of flour and eggs and chocolate. You use your arithmetic knowledge. Your parietal lobes were working here. Your sensations, everything you sense, taste of chocolate in your tongue, texture of flour and eggs in your hands. Attention and arithmetic knowledge also happens in these lobes. When you walk inside the kitchen to get some tools, you have been using spatial localization. Then you start. But first, you decide to light the oven beforehand, so it would be ready. You start mixing ingredients, whisking it, doing stuff with your hands, even making mistakes. You are just on action. While doing it, you are trying to remember that joke you had heard years ago about cookies, so you can tell it to her. Then you tell the joke, but your grandma doesn't get it. You feel that familiar emotion when nobody laughs at your stupid joke. You feel awkward, but happy, because it is such a beautiful moment you share with your grandma. In this part, your frontal lobe were on fire. You planned your actions by lighting the oven before starting. You used your motor cortex by doing stuff with your hands. By making mistakes, you have learned new things. You have searched for an old memory, a joke. When you tell your joke, you used Broca's area, your speech production function. You felt mixed emotions, which all happened in your frontal cortex. Yeah, that's all.